I saw that. Brick killed a guy.
The Boys is Amazon Prime Video's marquee franchise right now, and for good reason. It might be the only modern pop culture show that's accurately speaking to how most regular people view the world in 2022. So far, throughout the first 3 seasons, The Boys has been setting up Homelander as the ultimate threat and primary antagonist of the show, at least on the surface. When you think more about why Homelander is the way he is and how he got to the position he's in, it generally starts to seem like the intention of the show is to hide the true villain behind Homelander. He's a villain, surely, but he's not the main villain. Think about this. What would defeating Homelander solve? The Boys would have an easier go of things, and Vought might learn to create soups that aren't too powerful for them to control, but the world would continue relatively uninterrupted. To understand why Homelander isn't the real villain of this show, we first need to talk about The Boys in the context of its social commentary. The most surface level critique that The Boys has to offer is that of the superhero genre. The Boys is the ironic antidote to the superhero fatigue that so many of us have been feeling. Even as a diehard fan of the MCU, I'm beginning to view some of these movies and Disney Plus shows as required reading to enjoy better content that will come in the future. The Boys is a break from that because it's not beholden to the same rules that a Marvel movie is, and they intentionally draw attention to that fact by referencing Marvel's corporate handcuffs in their own work. From referencing the Ant-Man should crawl up Thanos' ass meme to showing Marvel how to do a pander-free women's empowerment scene that made contextual sense, in many ways the anti-superhero show can do superheroes better than the billion-dollar franchise. These subversions and references relate to one of the other primary pieces of social commentary at the forefront of The Boys, not just a critique of the superhero movies, but a critique of Hollywood in general. In The Boys, superheroes are as much movie stars as they are anything else. You have blockbuster sensations like Homelander and middling B-list celebrities who are still trying to claw their way to the top. The very first time we get a peek behind the curtain in The Boys, the Deep pulls a Harvey Weinstein on Starlight, an on-the-nose depiction of the dark side of making it as a woman in Hollywood. Time and time again, we see that these superheroes are far more concerned with how the public views them than actually being good people. Homelander's the most extreme and obvious version of this, but he's not even the worst of them. As the audience, we perpetually see behind the curtain. We know that Homelander's evil, and so does almost everyone else he comes in close contact with. Say what you want about the man, but he's a respectable antagonist. Homelander's actions are his own, as despicable as they are. As we learned in Season 4, Homelander truly doesn't give a fuck. He'll take almost as much joy in brutal totalitarian world domination as he will in being beloved by the masses. We know where he stands. You can't say the same for characters like the Deep and A-Train. Deep's arc revolved around joining then leaving the Church of the Collective, all for personal gain. The Church of the Collective is a clear reference to Scientology, which is already widely criticized in pop culture. Interestingly, The Boys take things a step further than Scientology bad lol, which we've already seen 1,000 times. Instead of stopping there, we see a clear criticism of Deep ditching the church when it benefits him, monetizing his departure with a tell-all book which, of course, he didn't actually write. Not to mention that he literally ate his friend alive to rejoin the Seven. A-Train's character arc is very similar to the Deep's. He's like an actor who was only popular because they were young and attractive. Now that he basically can't run, A-Train feels he has nothing left to offer the public, so he resorts to playing the only card he feels that he has. In Season 4, A-Train becomes the personification of the transparent facade of empty activism. He's embracing his heritage because it's the only way he feels he can stay relevant after losing his ability to run, not because he feels any sort of conscience about using his platform for the betterment of the black community. This is no more evident than the scene with his brother, Nathan. While discussing taking a stand for genuine injustice, A-Train says, "I'm Michael Jordan, not Malcolm X," referencing Jordan's famous line, "Republicans buy sneakers too." Whatever you think about the Jordan quote, it doesn't apply to A-Train. Michael Jordan didn't play politics to stay relevant, he rejected all of it. On the contrary, A-Train is trying to make his entire persona about social justice while nearly refusing to stand for anything that could be considered to shake up the status quo, even if it relates to a nobody street-level hero like Blue Hawk. A-Train is just one example of how the writers of the show present our current political landscape. The Boys embraces a nihilistic outlook on politics, a worldview that seems to be adopted by more and more people with each passing year. It's the political black pill, the idea that everything is bullshit, everyone is lying, and there's nothing you can do to change it. There are two political sides that we see in The Boys. On the left, we have billion-dollar corporate entities virtue signaling wokeness while working behind the scenes to fight anything that could lead to genuine change in the system or benefit the oppressed. On the right, we have thinly veiled Nazi ideology with more palatable packaging on the back of the biggest fraud the country has ever seen. Even those who seem to be fighting the system and making real progress end up being controlled opposition used to placate the most radical voices of dissent. Although we, as the audience, can see through the facade, the brain-dead masses on both sides of the political aisle eat up all the bullshit and ask for seconds. Does any of this sound familiar to you? What's the solution that the show comes up with in the face of these issues? Burn it all to the ground. If you see the world this way, it's hard not to feel a bit hopeless. The Boys is about a group of regular people who actually have a shot at bringing the system to its knees, even if the chips are stacked against them. Of course, it's not all sunshine and roses for these would-be revolutionaries. I'm writing this video after Season 3, Episode 4. So far, Butcher has used temporary V a couple times and Huey's used it once. In the comics, the Boys had superpowers from the jump, and pretty generic abilities at that. Super strength, durability, and enhanced intelligence. In the show, Butcher has lasers for eyes to match Homelander, and Huey has a teleport ability that looks awfully similar to what A-Train can do. I wouldn't be surprised if Marvin eventually took Temp V and gained powers that look similar to Soldier Boy. This, to me, seems like a pretty deliberate choice. The Boys are becoming what they hate in an effort to fight the superhero industrial complex. Not just supes in general, but powers specific to the people that they personally despise the most. And what's the worst part of it? They love it. Huey at least can admit that he loves it. Butcher claims that he hated every minute of it, but that's likely a lie he's telling himself to justify his actions. This brings me back to Homelander and why he's not the true villain of the Boys. He's a sadistic, murderous psychopath, but he's a symptom of the problem, not the problem itself. Vought is the villain. The system is the villain. Vought created Homelander and propped him up as the world's greatest hero. If Homelander died, they'd likely do something similar or worse. In fact, Homelander might be the only person with a clear path to dismantling the system that created him. Of course, he'd prefer not to do that. He works much better in cooperation with it. This idea was, in my opinion, cemented as a fact when Butcher and Homelander met at Butcher's apartment. The two have an intense personal conflict, but they ultimately both want two different versions of the same thing. I saw the purpose of their meeting as an acknowledgement of that. This was both of them agreeing. Fuck the system, fuck everyone trying to control us, we're doing this our way. As much as we hate Homelander, it's hard not to like him in this scene. The Boys is an allegory for a modern revolution, a messy, morally gray fight that has the potential to spark real and lasting change. The Boys speaks truth to how many people see the modern West more than any content out there. What's more, The Boys injects hope into a hopeless worldview. It's speaking to millions of people who share this nihilistic outlook and telling them not to lose hope. And that's what a lot of people need to hear. The Boys isn't over, and with 6 volumes spanning 72 issues combined with the show being the most successful Prime Video product on the platform, I doubt it will end anytime soon. Likewise, I doubt that this will be the last time I talk about The Boys or the nihilistic world they inhabit. If you made it this far, do me a favor and like the video. I put out new videos each week on the content I enjoy. If that sounds like something you'd want to watch, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.